Good morning. I was recently reminded of some time I spent working at some hospitals, and it was an extremely it was an extremely difficult time in my life. It was a little under a year, I think. It just felt like a year. It felt like 2 years, probably. But I guess it was a time of serious growth, and that's kind of what I'm thinking of right now. That I can, that those difficult times are always wind up being times of growth, because you don't know your limits until you're pushed past them. And I'm of the mind that the Lord is the only one who knows your limits, and you don't get to know what they are. you don't know what they are, and you're probably almost guaranteed to be wrong if you guess, because your limits are, I don't know, we self-impose limits. I don't know, maybe there's people out there that are super confident, that are just like, I have no limits, haha, and they go until they're completely gone. But I don't know. As people probably exist. This is not important. Okay, so it was, I worked at 3-4 different hospitals in Kentucky and in Washington. And there was, in the Kentucky one, so it was pretty much a 3-hour commute, round trip, every day. And it was extremely difficult. And there was a lot of data to put together. There were a lot of places to visit. Hospitals have lots of nooks and crannies, and I think there were a lot of people to deal with, and people all up and down these business units. Low-level people, high-level people, CFOs and stuff like that. Like it was a lot. And the real job was the friendships we made along the way. It was the journey was the thing, and it changed me very significantly. I grew a lot during that short period of time, comparatively short period of time. It was I started out working as part of the team, and then someone wanted me to manage a team, or co-manage a team. Cue the Office jokes. And then we split off, and I had my own team. And knowing the area, like, I don't know, it just kind of incorporated so many of my skills that I just excelled at it. And it became difficult to pretend that I was just that I was not exceptional, because all the stuff that I did, I just figured like everyone else could pretty much do. Like, well, with a little bit more effort, you could probably do it. But even stuff like being able to see things is actual skill of observation. That's not something that everyone can do, apparently. I don't understand it, but that is observably the case. It is something that I do. Actually, it's probably something I learned to do while on that job, because there was so much observation that needed to take place, so many things that were hidden or partially hidden or definitely obscured, and definitely people who were trying to obscure you in some cases, or hide things from you in some cases. And even on the team's aspect, people who are trying to actively mislead you, just lie directly to you. And I learned a ton about managing a team. Not all of it good, but it's managing people is always a problem. But I also learned about a lot of data correlation and being able to take my data with me and unify things so that only one place needs to be updated. I had a Galaxy Note 2 at the time, and I used that extensively. I used it to connect to my web server where I would have notes. I had Orgzly, O-R-G-Z-L-Y, on my phone, which allowed me to do taggable searches of basically text files. So, you know me, my medium of art is text. So, being able to grab, being sent garbage Excel files that are partially completed and mostly duplicates that are 50 megabytes of data, and then parsing through all of it. My superiors were very impressed when they sent me something and said, hey, okay, here's the list from the customer, and just do your best, because there was always an expectation that the data was going to be bad, and that the only thing that actually mattered, and this is something that I carry to this day, is putting your eyes on the thing, you actually observing it. People can tell you things, people can be told things and then tell you things. People can be sworn things and then tell you things as though they've seen them, or as though they swear to them. None of it matters until you put your eyes on the thing, until you observe the thing happening, until you measure or predict. You can actually have some scientific reasoning for determining that the thing is there or the thing is happening. And until that happens, no, you don't get to tell me what to think. You don't get to tell me what's happening, what might be happening. You don't get to tell me how other people think, especially. That led to a big problem. And now, after that, I just, I get accused of being a little bit of a robot sometimes. But that's just being an engineer. But that job made me, while I was on the ground on that job, I was probably 95% robot. Like, it was that bad, because there was so much data to work with, and there was so much nonsense, so much bad data, so much misreporting, so many people that, wouldn't take the time to jot something down, so much bad data, and even among the team's collected data, there was bad data. And when you get that, you need to figure out ways to make you, the manager, catch those failures, and recognize that you're not catching the failure because you expect them to fail. You're catching the failure because they're human beings and they're going to fail on purpose or an accident, and you as a manager need to verify the integrity of that data in some way. At the end of the day, it's your it's your rear end on the line. You're the one signing the papers. You're the one saying this is the case. You're the one confirming this to the customer. And if the answer is no, or if that thing is wrong, then they're going to come to you. And are you going to say, oh, well, I just, that was the information that was told me, stuff rolling downhill? And maybe that's what they admired, at least, is because, I always took full responsibility for the actions of my team, especially when I failed to act to prevent them from doing stuff. But I don't know, I really stood out on that job, and like I said, it became difficult for me to continue thinking that I was normal or slightly above average. And when I came to that realization, I was like, okay, so what do I do with this information? It made me more confident in the ideas that I had, the projects that I was working on, the idea that what I was doing was something that was not being done by, a million other people in the world, or even 100,000 other people in the world. I had that Raspberry Pi display inversion thing that just broke my brain for a while, because it made me realize that there's almost no people in the world doing this stuff, and that's just, it makes me sad. It hurts my soul. But like I said, it was a period of a lot of growth, and it was extremely difficult. They wanted me to go across country, and I prayed on it, and the answer was yes. So I was like, well, okay, the answer is yes, but I'm not gonna like it. And they flew me back for Father's Day. I won't. Well, I got everything I wanted when I asked for it, and that was also indicative that they valued my. Well, they sent me across country. They picked me out of the team and sent me across country to manage another team. So there's obviously some value there, but like it's kind of that's the negotiating tactic. The best negotiating tactic you have, which is the one that I used, is you don't negotiate and you don't use tactics. You just don't lie. You just state facts. The commute was killing me, and aside from just being difficult mentally and physically, it was also difficult on my car. I was taking putting in a lot of miles and spending a lot of money on gas. And pretty early on the team, I said, hey, I called our bosses, and it was working through intermediaries, which is, of course, everyone's a contractor now. But I was like, hey, this is what's going on. And they're like, oh, we can't negotiate on price. I'm like, okay, but I'm just telling you that this is probably what's going to happen. I'm probably going to have to quit soon because this is not working out. And they're like, well, we can't negotiate on price. I'm like, okay, well, call us when you quit. Okay, bye. And then, I would get a call an hour later and said, okay, the customer said that they're willing to reimburse for mileage and this and that. Okay. And then, months in, after I was managing the team, I talked to them and said, hey, this is fine, but I'm getting other job offers, and this is I still have to commute 3 hours. This is still very difficult. It's frankly just not worth the money. I'm just letting you know that I'm looking at other options, and I might be leaving soon. And they said, oh, okay, well, at that point I was talking to, the actual customers rather than the intermediaries, the contract negotiators, I guess. I don't know. Contract managers. And they said, okay, well, don't worry about it. We'll get you a raise. Hang on. And then, 2 hours later, the contractor people would call me up and say, hey, you've been approved for a raise. You'll be processed at this. Here's your new pay rate. Have a nice day. And it's like, okay. And then when they were talking about flying me across country, I was like, well, that's rough, but, Father's Day's through that, and they're like, oh, no, don't worry, we'll fly you back for Father's Day. And it got to the point where I was getting reimbursement checks that were a major portion of my, they were paying expenses, obviously paying for, food and lodging and stuff, but they're paying expenses that was, a portion of my paycheck. It was weird. It got weird. And that's when I started to realize it's these are just different categories. Money spent on wages has rules and instructions and, approval processes. But money spent on expenses is a different requirement, different rules, different instructions, different approval processes. And I realized that they were just trying to pay me money a different way. That's just kind of my opinion, man. It was never a job I would have taken if I wasn't out of work at the time and I hadn't been, preying on it. And it was extremely difficult, like I said, but I grew so much professionally during that time. Professionally and personally. And that was it was under a year. And I still, there are some tracks, some albums that really got me through that time, especially the driving. And that's what I did. That's what reminded me of it this morning. Is I was like, hey, that kind of popped into my head. I'm like, I haven't listened to that in a while, and I was like, why don't I listen to that real quick? And 4 minutes in, I'm like, getting a little misty, thinking about all this, and getting tired and fatigued, remembering a lot of stuff, and it's I'm even remembering more, man. So, I don't want to say be confident, but do the hard things sometimes. Do things that take you far out of your comfort zone. There's probably some things that you're not sure about or not sure about committing to because of the difficulty, or you're not sure you're going to be able to manage it, or even possibly you might think it's beneath you. But if you haven't done it before, you don't know what you might learn from it, and you don't know where it might take you across the country.